Your ideal rookie draft strategy is, of course, going to be specific to what your Dynasty team looks like, but we've got some general strategy for your rookie picks today, and we're going to tell you specifically what you should do with every single rookie pick in Dynasty based on what type of team you have. So whether you're a rebuilding team or a contending team in Dynasty, here's what you should do with your 2026 picks. Drop a like on this video and make sure you're subscribed if you play Dynasty. If you enjoy the content, every Dynasty rookie pick every single year, and from now to the end of time, especially in April, should always be on the trade block. Always. Why? Because again, you have some built-in leverage with these picks, and anytime you find yourself in a positive leverage situation trading in Dynasty, it sets you up for a potential to get small value wins or even rarely big value wins, right? Leverage is the first step in establishing small value wins for rebuilds and reloads, and also as a contender, you can get small value wins and continue to build a juggernaut that is actually a true Dynasty winning year over year. And so that built-in leverage that comes in April, in May of the draft, like, you can't get that anywhere else. It is an automatic free bonus if you've got somebody who likes this rookie class or likes rookie picks and they want your picks. You automatically have the upper hand. It's going to set you up for a potential value win. So they should always be on the trade block. That's the first thing. No rookie pick is too good to sell, even the 101. Now, some rookie picks are easier to sell than others, and that's going to be based on the strength of the class, and we'll talk about that with this year's class. However, the built-in leverage is not quantifiable. You literally cannot put a price tag on that. You have the upper hand in these negotiations. Take advantage of it, make somebody get emotional, and make somebody pay for the pick. Now,
it's so variable per league too.
That it is variable per league, and a lot of people want to talk about the ideal time to sell picks. And what we've seen after about 4 years of making content now is rookie picks are obviously very cyclical. They climb and climb and climb throughout the season. They do spike in January when the NFL season's over, the fantasy season's over, and people are playing Dynasty for the first time that offseason. They have a big spike then. They go down in February or March. They spike again at the end of April when we have the draft, particularly when you're on the clock. A lot of people want to say the best time to sell picks while you're on the clock. Sure, I can get behind that. That generally is the correct answer. However, I mean, when you have certain classes, depending on what the strength of the class is, depending on what your league mates are doing, there are cases where it is smart to sell your picks in February and March still if you can get out. And then we've seen that this year with the particularly weak class, especially in the late first of this year. And so, if you're going to sell your picks, or you're going to buy picks. If you're trying to buy picks, we'll tell you which ones you can buy and which ones you shouldn't. If you're trying to sell them, I don't think there's any harm in selling them right now, as long as you're confident that you're not going to get a much larger return while you're on the clock. People want to say, oh, you'll always get the best return on the clock, always hold your on the clock. But if you get a significant value win for a pick right now, why wouldn't you just take the significant value win? So it's not a hard and fast rule to always hold your picks until you're on the clock. Yes, there is a greater chance that you could get even more leverage while you're on the clock, but don't turn down a value win just for the sake of holding your picks till you're on the clock. That is, again, that's Dinosaur Dynasty. Always take a value win. You can get a value win. With that being said, most of the time, the places you can get the biggest value wins are when you're on the clock in your rookie draft. You have to know what your picks are worth, and that really is the important thing here, and kind of what we've been fighting with this draft class that's been particularly weak. What are these firsts actually worth? It's been harder this year to tell than any other year, because in startup drafts, we've seen these firsts go way too early sometimes, and then we've seen people overcorrect and go way too late. But knowing what your rookie picks are worth when you go to sell them is important for knowing if it's actually worth selling the rookie pick. I talked about getting a big value win, getting a small value win. How do you define that? You have to know the base value of the pick to know if you're getting a value win, to know if you're getting more in return. So how do you figure out what your picks are worth? Again, it's a number of things. Startup draft ADP is a good one. A lot of times in established leagues, it's different than that. So you have communities that you can bounce things off of. Market value analysis, etc. All of those are tools. Expert rankings sometimes people like to use. All of those are tools to try to figure out generally where a pick is valued in the Dynasty fantasy football community. And so you have to know the worth of your picks in order to know if they're worth selling or buying, and each league is different. And for example, I do want to also put this out there for the pick strategy. It is possible, even in a world, and I want to take just a minute to explain this because I haven't had a good chance to do it on a video, and I think this is the perfect chance. It is possible in a world where we acknowledge how weak the late first is and tell everyone that they should be selling their late firsts. It is possible that firsts do get too cheap. And the perfect example of this, it's again more of a nuance into that strategy. Every asset in Dynasty has a price. If you're playing on a price-based evaluation, every Dynasty asset reaches a price point where they're a good value, even if you have them ranked lower. For example, in startup drafts this year, a lot of times Nathan and I would take late first, even though we are actually advocating for you to sell your own late first. But why did that happen? Here is the example. Late firsts are weaker than they typically are this year than any other year, right? And so in a normal year, let's say for the sake of this example, a late first would be ranked at ADP 68, okay?
Oh, it's 69.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah. I missed opportunity. 69, right? So you have a late first ranked at 69 this year. Normally, those late firsts are ranked at 60. And so we've already adjusted our rankings of these 2026 picks and moved them down and already compensated for how bad this class is. We're already ranking these picks around lower than we normally would be. So it's baked into our personal rankings. So not only does the late first, when you get into a startup draft, not go at 60 where it normally goes, it gets to 69 where, nice, we think that they should actually be valued, and then it keeps sliding, and then you get to
like
79. Exactly. And so the point there is, we had already ranked these picks very, very low, much lower than what a normal late first would be. And they slid even farther past that because people took the don't buy late first or sell your late first to such an extreme that you actually were drafting these late firsts in a range of players that when you're comparing the hit rate of a late first in a weak class and a player and their likelihood to increase in dynasty value, the late first actually had better odds because, again, those picks got pushed so far down. So you do have to keep an eye on your leagues. We see this in domain leagues a lot. Picks can get too cheap, and that's a quantifiable example of how they can get too cheap. Even in multiple things can be true, guys. Multiple things can be true here. It's a bad class. It is. I think the top's good. The late firsts are bad. Generally, in most leagues, they're good sells, and we've been advocating to sell them since November, and we have all the videos in between to show you.
And we can still take them in drafts.
And you can still look if they're going for, if we have them priced at ADP 69 and you can go buy a late first for ADP 80, we're incorporating the strength of the class into our rankings. That's still a value win. Yeah. And so don't let, it's not a one size fits all solution. Everything is price based and every asset has a price where they can be either bought or sold. It's the same thing with picks.
If we didn't take the late picks where they were going way cheaper than where they should be priced, then that would literally be called take lock. Like, this is a definition of take lock.
And again,
to a point where you're literally like, you're so anti some asset in Dynasty that you're not going to invest in them at any price whatsoever, even though there is a price point where it does make sense. And we see this not just with rookie picks every single year, but we see this with players too. We always say, like, players that we have listed as sells, honestly, is part of the reason that we like a lot of times have a hard time doing sells videos for you guys, because there's a good number of takes that we'll have for some of these players where, like, some people will get really mad at, like, oh, how could you say sell this player? And at this point, we just say, hey, it's a market play. We're projecting that this person is going to be cheaper than where they're currently being priced, so cash out now, and then maybe, who knows, in a year you can invest in them later. Sure. So it goes more ways than just picks.
It's funny how it's hard to see that with picks, but when we see it with players, it's a little bit easier to comprehend. So let me put a player example on this. Bucky Irving was somebody we said was a sell when he was in the 4th round. Well, Bucky's lost 2 rounds of value. Bucky Irving has been going in the 6th round of our Dynasty startup drafts. A sell at one price is not a forever sell. Right. When you lose 2 full rounds of value, we're not going to keep telling you to sell Bucky Irving after he's lost a third of his value. At that point, what are we going to say? Bucky's probably entering hold/buy territory because his price has dropped. If you
Jameson Williams is the eternal example of this.
He is the eternal example of just playing the market and always having different buys and sell points. But it's the same thing as the real stock market, right? You may think that a stock is priced much too high and that a company who you're buying the stock in is destined for the stock to fall for one reason or another. And so you might be saying to sell at that certain point. But then the stock plummets, it goes way down, and you know that the company's actually worth more than what the current stock price is. But you're not going to keep selling low, right? It's the same thing with 26 first. And again, it doesn't change any of our analysis or strategy about this class. It's a weak class, and we've generally recommended for a certain price moving 26 first.
And I'm just saying, I'll bet you $1 million that when it's all said and done, at some point between May and the beginning of the season, we will have some stock and some shares in some of those guys that were going in the late first because of what their price ends up being.
Because they're going around guys that are probably worth like a mid-second.
Right.
And at that point, again, even a terrible asset, in our opinion, can become a good value. That is possible in Dynasty if you can kind of see through the weeds there. And so this year, the most important thing, I think, just specific to this class, the number one rule for us in Dynasty rookie drafts this year that I need each and every one of you to write this down. Take the best value always. Oh, here goes domain again, best value. We've heard this a million times. But you would think
saying
you would think that after we've said this a million times that we wouldn't get this. You know what our most asked question is this year in Dynasty rookie draft season?
Should I take Fernando at the 102?
I need a quarterback. Should I take Fernando Mendoza at the 102? How many times have we gotten that question?
I've literally lost count.
I don't think we can quantify
I've legitimately lost count.
And so even if you know this, it's a great reminder. Do not draft in rookie drafts contending or rebuilding based on team need unless you are drafting from players in the same tier. We'll have a specific video about that later. But what you need to know for now is in this particular example, Fernando Mendoza is not in the same tier, in our opinion, of course, the other creators can have this a different way, as Carnell Tate and Mekhi Lemon. So because of that, we are never, regardless of how many quarterbacks or how bad you need quarterbacks, ever taking Fernando Mendoza at the 102 instead of Mekhi Lemon or Carnell Tate. What you could theoretically do is move back to the 104 and take Fernando Mendoza there and get something on top. But reaching on a player for positional need in a rookie draft is the number one biggest mistake that we ever see people making. So do not reach on a player because of team need. And if you need quarterback this year, no, you are not taking Fernando Mendoza, who I bet this has cooled off a little bit now because of the Kirk Cousins signing, because it's fairly evident now that Fernando Mendoza is probably not going to start year one. And I think the temptation was for contending teams to grab their quarterback for next year at the 102, and now he's not playing, so maybe this has cooled off a little bit. Regardless, it's still worth reminding you, draft on a tiers-based approach. Take the value in the tier. When you're drafting, when you're at the 102 and you've got two guys there and they're both wide receivers, you're taking a wide receiver. But if you're drafting at the 104, it's the start of a tier and you've got a quarterback, a tight end, and two wide receivers or something like that, you can take any one of them because they're in the same tier. But do not let a value faller make it past you in a Dynasty rookie draft, and do not reach on a player in a rookie draft because of team need.
This is why we always struggle so much with putting names to picks before the NFL draft actually happens and before these tiers are actually established. That being said, we're going to do our best for you guys right now, and we are going to walk through every single individual pick or pick range from the 101 to the 212 and try to give you a good idea of the players that we project are going to be there. It doesn't mean they're going to be there for sure. If you remember, if you look at our video last year when we did this, we had, along with pretty much everyone in the market, had Luther Burden in a tier with a couple of running backs, I think like Henderson and McMillan, maybe Hunter as well. Or no, I think we had him a tier below Hunter. But anyways, all that to say, Burden was one of the biggest followers in that class last year, and he ended up going a tier way below. And what do you see in that situation compared to like what we see often? We see a guy like Burden, sometimes for people who don't adjust to the tiers after the NFL draft, end up reaching on a player who they're like, well, that's who we established was in that tier before the draft. Like, things are going to change here. What we know for sure, almost without a shadow of a doubt, is not going to change is Jeremiah Love. He's just like Genty last year, 99.9999999% guaranteed to be the 101 in this class. You're talking about running backs who go in the first round, who have first round draft capital historically. If you look at our running back research video that we did a couple weeks ago, they are the most insulated, not the most insulated, they are the safest rookie asset to invest in. Because when they get this draft capital and this investment, I mean, the leash that they have is so long. The chances that they get year after year after year, despite like production not even really a factor, they maintain their value. Jeremiah Love is no exception here. He's going to be a top. I'll be conservative and say he'll be a top 15 pick. He's going to go probably top 10, probably top 5.
Top 5.
I just fingers crossed, not the Giants. Hopefully the Titans. Look, as a rebuild, I am only exploring down tiers from Jeremiah Love in this class if you're getting an absolute haul, and probably down tiering into the 102 to 103 range no further. And honestly, if you're down tiering, I'd rather just get multiple proven players that aren't involved in this class. Like, I remember last year when we recommended this with Ashton Genty for a lot of rebuilders, we were like, yo, you can down tier all the way down to the 105, 106 and get a big plus on top and have a really, really nice analytically solid asset going in that range and feel really good about it, plus a ton of value that you can spread out across your team while you're looking to rebuild. That is not the case in this year's class. No. Jeremiah Love is head and shoulders above everybody else to a point where it really just, there's no incentive for you to move that pick or down tier from that pick super far unless you're getting a total haul. So I'm not going to say rebuild, don't explore down tiers. We've done some blueprints for people where we say, hey, look at down tiers from Love. You should be getting a haul. And this is the actual like quantity of value that we want you to get a return for. And generally that involves a lot of times not even rookie picks in return. It's usually like Tat McMillan plus a lot. It's Omari and Hampton plus a lot. It's like a very small down tier to a foundational asset that is not in this year's rookie class. Yeah. So keep that in mind, but that does take us to the 102 and the 103, which is in our opinion, starting to separate itself from the rest of the field as well.
Yeah, it is. And here's the thing, like you go back and watch what we've predicted about this class from November, like we've always said the top 3 of this class, we were pretty confident in it. And actually we've stretched that to top 4 at times. I'm definitely more confident in the top 3, knowing that 4 is going to be a high floor player, but maybe not necessarily a high ceiling player. Depends. Actually, maybe it's the opposite of that. Actually, maybe the Mendoza, Tyson, Sadiq tier is the low floor, high ceiling tier, and these guys are high floor and high ceiling. Either way, we talked about this rookie class on a video a couple weeks ago, and people, mentioned that these guys said to sell picks, and then now the wide receiver class is good. The wide receiver class is always going to be good. We said it was going to be good for 5 months straight. And just because one position group out of 4 is good doesn't mean that the strategy of our picks have changed, our verdicts on the picks have changed. It doesn't mean that we haven't sold our own picks, which we have. It changed nothing about how we're looking at this class. But Lemon and Tate, again, these are guys we always knew were going to be top prospects from the day we started doing these videos in October till now. And it's reigned true, right? For rebuilding teams, you're holding these picks. You're getting a foundational, these guys will enter our rankings as foundational pieces when they're drafted, a foundational wide receiver that has a very easy path to become a cornerstone. For a rebuild, I don't know what else you could want. The only thing you could potentially do from the 102, 103 is, again, if you are the hardest of hard rebuilds, maybe you could down tier. But you're already getting to the point in wide receiver rankings where down tiering to a guy, you're getting out of the guys who have actual cornerstone upside very quickly. And having that cornerstone upside on a rebuild is very important because those guys hold, because of the way that dynasty value works exponentially, the cornerstones hold so much value. And so that's very valuable to have guys who can be cornerstone assets. So rebuilding teams, we're going to say to hold. Kind of the same thing with reloading teams. Contending teams, we're going to say hold as well. I mean, if you're contending, you have the 102 and 103, and you need an extra flex spot. Your extra flex spots right here, and these are going to be super duper high upside flex spot guys.
I will give you the exact players where we are willing as a contending team to move off the 102, and it's if you get London, Hampton, or Achane, and that's it. There's a massive teardrop after that. Tet McMillan's the other guy too.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I also think you could throw in maybe a quarterback or 2 in there, depending on what your format is. Like a Caleb Williams, I would probably consider in a 6-point passing touchdown pretty easily.
And honestly, he's probably pretty closer to the 101.
Exactly. And so depends on the league. Domain leagues, maybe probably closer to 102, 103. But regardless, contending teams, again, we're gonna have you hold. Unless you can get a proven player like Nathan mentioned, there's a really small range of them, and after that range, you really don't want the guys. It's worth just holding Lemon and Tate with their production upside, and also, again, their value upside on a contending team as well. And so with the 102, 103, it's been pretty consistent from us. It hasn't changed. These are picks that we expect to be average, if not above average, for a top 3 Dynasty rookie draft pick. It's after this where it gets really messy, and it's in the last half of this round where it gets extremely messy. These early first were always, actually, this 102 and 103 in particular, at times this offseason, we've mentioned this a lot, have been undervalued because we
were the most confident in them. We said we're the most worried about 104 after, but the mid-first could end up being okay. We just don't know yet.
And how many times have you seen the value of these 102, 103 picks drug down because of the lack of strength in the late first? A lot. I mean, we've seen the 102 go in the late third of the round, and the 103 go in the fourth multiple times in startups. Less recently, but especially in the February range, we saw that a ton. And so the 102, 103, again, rebuilding and contending teams for the most part are going to try to hold this. And whether or not you're holding these picks is all relative to what type of team you have, how many rookie picks you have, first of all, because that makes a big difference in trying to diversify and not get in on a ton of rookies so your hit rates are very small because, again, you eventually start stacking those. It depends on if you're rebuilding or contending. It depends on, is Carnell Tate or Mekhi Lemon going to be your wide receiver 4 or your wide receiver 2? It's all roster dependent. So if you do want a personalized plan for your dynasty team, where Nathan and I personally can look at your team, we can tell you if we think you're a rebuilding or a contending team. We can tell you what your production share and value share is analytically, and then after giving you an analytical diagnosis, we can give you all the trades for your dynasty team. You can come join the community, get a free team blueprint as well. You can get infinite blueprint, all the trade tools with the site, the trade calculator. You're going to get the rankings. You're going to get all of the things we offer, our Discord community, our leads, etc. So you can get all of that. Plus, again, we try to price it as good as we can, as well as we can for a membership like this. You can come join one of the best communities in Dynasty Fantasy Football. So check it out at the link below. We can give you, again, a comprehensive breakdown of your Dynasty team It's personalized. Nathan and I do every single one of these, and then we can get you a plan for your rookie draft. We have a rookie draft blueprint included with every blueprint right now. And so if you do want to plan for your rookie draft and what your current pick status is and who you should sell for and who you should not sell for, we've got all of that on our rookie draft blueprint, included with every blueprint. So go check it out at the link below if you'd like to get your team looked at. Again, busy time of year for all of us, for you guys, for us especially, but we're committed to making sure you guys know what type of team you have so you don't make the wrong move in Dynasty rookie drafts, because it could end up costing you money in the long term. And honestly, knowing what type of team you have is one of the most important things for a Dynasty player.
And that does take us to the 104 and the 106, which we mentioned gets a little bit hairier. Honestly, you could try to split up the 104 through the 109 a little bit differently. We just have 3 and 3 here because we don't really know if like Concepcion and Cooper are going to get up into this 104 and later tier, or if they're going to be in a tier of their own a little further down. We're just going to split it up for now. But this tier, especially this range, the 104 through the 109, there could be a lot of shakeup here. Mendoza, we feel the most confident in. Obviously, he's going to be the first overall pick. Jordan Tyson is really the third of those big three who's had a lot of medical concerns heading into the NFL draft. I will say, again, similar to the discussion we had at the beginning of this video, there is a price point for a guy like Jordan Tyson where it is worth just investing in him if he gets too low. There is a chance, there is a world where the dynasty market as a whole gets too low on Jordan Tyson and it's just too good to pass up on him and his value and what his potential draft capital could be. Again, this is all draft capital dependent. Similar to Burden last year where we had him in this range pre-NFL draft, and he ended up falling quite a bit because where his draft capital ended up being in the early second. Jordan Tyson is definitely in that conversation. He was the first to declare in this year's class at the wide receiver position, though, and I do think that says a lot to what he and his agent know about where he's likely to go in the NFL draft, which is probably in the mid-first. There's a world where he falls to the late first. I think that's very possible. That being said, he's a solid prospect. Kenyon Sadiq, a tight end here. I think at this point on year 3 of, seeing Bowers and then Loveland and then Warren, all of them maintain or exceed the value that they initially had heading into the draft. I think regardless of landing spot here, we've learned that first round draft capital tight ends tend to hold their value year 1 to year 2 quite a bit. They don't have to do much to maintain that. Sadiq is going to be one of the safer picks in the mid-range here of your first round picks. So for rebuilders, I am probably planning on holding the 104 and the 106 right now because it's kind of that weird gray area at the moment where it's like, okay, we've got a really good idea of the players that are likely to be drafted in that range where we did not in October, November, December, even early January. We were trying to figure it out a little bit. And now that we're getting so close to the NFL draft, we've got really these guys where we're very confident this is probably where they're going to settle. Maybe you see a running back like Price, if he gets early to mid-second round draft capital, go up into this tier. That's always a possibility. But that's why I am okay with rebuilds holding these picks, because honestly, the return that you're getting for those mid picks is where it gets hairy based on your league economy and where they're actually being drafted in startups. Again, it depends on what league you're in. If they are being overpriced in your league, then please shop those picks. In general, probably going to recommend that you hold on to these picks as a rebuild. Now, as a contender, I would explore offers for proven players. Again, similar to what I said about the rebuilds and it being dependent on your league economy, this depends on your league economy for contenders. If you're in a league that values these picks similarly to how they were valued in 2025 and the year before, and they view this class no differently than the previous classes, or they don't view any class differently than any other, then you might just want to see what return you can get here. If you can get a really solid, like low-end foundational asset or high-end mainstay for like the 106, if you're a contending team and you want to move the 106 for T. Higgins, then I'm okay with that. I really don't have an issue with that. So keep that in mind. If you are a contender, you can explore offers there, especially if you've got the 104 and you're like, man, I really feel a little bit iffy about that teardrop. I don't need a quarterback like Mendoza. And that's probably what I'm looking at the 104 or Tyson or a potential follower. Like after the 102 and the 103, I'm not getting one of those top end wide receivers. You can go look around, shop around and see if you can get like a Garrett Wilson or something for the 104. And I'm totally cool with that. So that does bring us to the 107 and the 109, which again, we've got a couple of receivers in here that we've come to really love. One guy who we have loved for a very long time because he's a Hoosier, and then Concepcion, who's been a big riser for us.
Yeah, and again, I should emphasize that big riser is, of course, relative to the strength of this year's class. These guys, even though they've gotten a lot of positive analytics, positive press recently, it doesn't make the class that much better because these guys are going to be now going 106, 107, 108 maybe. And
also, what what does riser imply? That there's a faller.
Exactly. And so who have the followers been? Well, Jordan Tyson has not been moving up rankings recently at all.
Yeah, Boston hasn't moved himself up either.
No, he has not. And
Coleman
so, again, people took this as like, okay, there's these, I thought this class sucked, but now you're saying like, look, Cooper and Concepcion in a normal class, you'd get guys like that at the 111. Remember when Ricky Pearsall went at the end of the first? Where were you getting Ricky Pearsall? 201, right? That's a good class. In a bad class, these wide receivers, where the wide receiver group is really the only good position group in this year's class, they're being drafted at the 106, 107.
And let's get this out of the way. Concepcion analytically is a better prospect than Pearsall was.
100%.
Still.
But I'm just saying also, like, that is still where Concepcion would have gone in that draft, most likely, if he had gone late first with all of those first-round prospects that year. And so, what are we doing with the 107 through 109 picks? This pick range is interesting. I have taken picks like these in a startup because they've fallen too far. I have taken 108s this year. Generally, I think the hit rates in this range start to get really, really bad, and we're going to give you some specific advice here with some of our different player categories
and that's independent of like just zeroing in on one poor draft class or one really good draft class. It's all of them composite, and that fall off is huge.
Yeah, and again, like we've looked at data from the last 12 classes and the average analytical Z-scores for all of these prospects against each other. And Concepcion, Cooper, and Price for a 107 through 109 crop potentially is a weak 107 through 109 crop. Now, again, every pick has a price. With that being said, what are we doing with these actual picks? This back half of the first round is where it gets pretty ugly. Rebuilders, I would probably shop these picks for foundational or upside premier assets or 2027 first. We can put some of those assets on the screen, our foundational and upside premier guys. And so you can see a lot of these guys aren't obtainable, right? The top foundational guys you're not getting for the 107 through 109. But if you're getting some of these upside premier guys or any 27 first, and that's an important distinction right there. I would
people will make this deal on the clock. This is when you on the clockers are correct.
Exactly.
This is when you're correct.
It's spot on. It's spot on. It's something that we've said now, really since we started playing Dynasty for 3 years, was, hey, like, sell your picks on the clock, sell your picks on the clock, sell your picks on the clock.
Yep.
And again, it's a good principle. It's not a hard and fast rule because, again, you don't want to throw away a value win because of that. Nathan's exactly right. This is where you get up in the 107, you have the 107, and you get on the clock, and somebody has fallen.
Someone's got a my guy.
Or somebody's got a my guy. The faller is different because sometimes you want to take the faller.
Right.
I mean, if we're talking about the 107 and somehow like one of Lemon or Tate makes it there in a super wacky league, of course you're just taking
Mendoza,
him. Or technically Mendoza. But somebody's got a my guy. Somebody loves Concepcion. You got a lot of those guys this year. Somebody loves Price. This is very easy for running backs as well. Price got drafted to whoever, and it's like, oh man, I wanted him Price. Okay, well, I have the 107. I'll just take your 27 for it. Just a random swap. Deal. What if it's a late 27? Again, in a good class, this level of prospect will be going late 27. At the absolute worst, flipping the 107 for a 27 first, even if it's the 112, is a lateral move. It's a reroll, essentially. And I would much rather reroll for next year's class. Anything past 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, any 27 first for those, it is an absolute slam dunk, no-brainer. You are taking that every day. Flipping these bottom 6 first for 27 first is a great move right now in Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues. And so, foundational upside premier guys, you're probably more looking at upside premier guys. I think that is doable depending on what league you're in. In most of these leagues that you have, you're gonna shop them for those upside premier guys or try to flip them for a 27 first on a rebuild. Now, if you're a contending team, you're gonna target some different categories here, right? You're gonna go upside premier and mainstay, right? Mainstays are guys that already have kind of reached their value ceiling, but they're productive enough to be in your lineup every week, and so they can benefit you if you get them in your flex spot, for example. It can benefit you to have these mainstay guys on your team, and so you target some of those guys. And again, we can put these guys on the screen for you, and you can see some of our mainstays and upside premiers here. Again, upside premiers being the same as we had for rebuilding teams, and you can get those on any team and they're great. However, mainstays, guys in this range that have been going here recently, guys like Kenneth Walker, who's been jumping up a whole lot, is a mainstay, so he's a higher end mainstay. Javonte Williams and Travis Etienne are two running back mainstays that are more valued close to these picks. Wide receivers, A.J. Brown's a no-brainer if you can get him for one of these picks, in my opinion, right now. I think I would take A.J. Brown over 107.
I see a lot of deals involving those picks specifically for A.J. Brown.
And Devontae Smith, I think.
Yep.
And so a lot of these guys, and again, not every mainstay. I'm not trading the 107 for Kyle Pitts.
Correct.
I'm not probably trading the 107 for Alec Pierce either, because I think Concepcion's a better shot than Alec Pierce.
Yep.
But in those categories, that's generally where we want people to target. And so finding which targets are best for your team is, again, the advantage of having a plan for your team. And we can give you targets for your team, or you can try to back into those yourself and find which targets would be best for your team. Regardless, moving for upside premier or mainstay contributors for contending teams, you absolutely want to be moving these picks 107 through 109. And again, the disclaimer of disclaimers for every single one of these moves when you're moving these, when you're exploring offers, when you're trying to trade for proven players, is every pick has a price where you shouldn't sell. Do not sell low. If you want to know if you think you're selling too low on a pick, you are welcome to ask us. We do this all the time, and we are happy to help you figure that out. Again, that is the advantage of being a member. We will make sure you do not sell too low on a pick. That is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. 107, 109, it gets ugly. 110 through 112, it gets even uglier.
Yeah, this is where it gets pretty rough. Boston, Jonah Coleman, Ty Simpson. This is very, very TBD, very tentative. This is assuming that Simpson gets first-round draft capital. I would bet that he does. Where that's going to be, I really don't know. Is it going to be mid-first or is it going to be super late first? I don't know. Regardless, this is exactly where he will settle if he gets that capital in this class, especially. If you remember seeing Jackson Dart in a deeper class last year, he was going like early mid-second. So again, you translate that to this year, this will be where Simpson goes. Jonah Coleman is probably the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest wild card in this range where he could really find himself with respectable draft capital going up into that 107, 109 range. That's very possible. Or he could fall down into like the early second if he ends up going like early day 3, which is also a possibility for him. We just don't really know. Denzel Boston, I feel the most confident will settle in this range. He's very consistently mocked like late first, sometimes early second. Everyone just kind of knows exactly what he is. I like him a lot. I hope he stays in this range because, again, if he ends up being really cheap in some of my leagues, I might get a couple of shares of him, but probably post draft. Rebuilders, though, I would shop for upside premier assets here if you can get your hands on some of those lower end upside premier assets or any 27 first. Again, this is going to be less likely than the 107 to 109 range where you can get a pretty solid 27 first. I do see deals where some of these late firsts in leagues where people think that this class is no different than any other will trade their 27 first for a my guy that they project to be in the late first range of this year's class. So don't say it never happens. We literally on thousands and thousands of trades for people literally all the time. I have seen this often. Contenders, shop for mainstays or productive vets. Again, these would be some lower end productive mainstays. So when you're looking at productive vets in this range, there's actually a good number of quarterbacks that I really like. I would send one of these late firsts for Jared Goff. I would send a late first for Baker Mayfield or Dak Prescott, Sam Darnold. Josh Jacobs is another guy who's probably one of the bigger like short-term market plays that Avery and I have right now because he's such an affordable price for a high production upside option who ended the year really slow last year because he was pretty banged up, but his situation hasn't changed. He's still the number one option there for Green Bay, and that's not going to change anytime soon, at least for 2026. So especially if you're a contender and you want to get a guy who's going to immediately contribute in your flex spot at this point, what his price currently is, then I would definitely go for that if I were a contending team for sure. So that takes us to the second rounds. And again, we talk about the late first being ugly. The second is brutal.
We've said for months now, these seconds should be treated. You should look at them as throw-ins. It doesn't mean you should sell low on them, but giving those away in a deal, you should not feel like you're losing anything there personally, even though, again, you got to take advantage of the value there and you don't want to sell low. 201 through 206. Chris Brazel, Surratt, love you, Surratt. Bernard, Bell, Stowers would be the best pick of all these guys.
You're talking best case, absolute best case early to mid second round draft capital for some of the best guys.
Mike Washington.
Mike Washington's probably a day 3 pick.
This is bad. I'm telling you, it's bad. I think Ryan said this in one of our chats, and I'll just highlight it here for you. Last year, there were 41 players that would have been the 212 or higher in this year's class that were graded higher than the 212, like 41.
Yeah,
41. So it's bad. It's a whole round of depth difference bad. And the second is where it really bleeds. Rebuilds should sell an up tier. Contenders should sell an up tier.
Pretty much 100% of the
all
time.
The time.
Again, within reason.
And then even just lumping these together, the 207, the 212, Emmett Johnson, Singleton, Katron Allen, Ted Hurst, Branch, Jacoby Lane, Antonio Williams, Eli Heidenreich even. Love you, Heidenreich.
Oh, love him.
Sell or up tier. And people will say, okay, but you like Heidenreich. Why are you not picking him in the second round?
I mean, he could end up going higher than this.
He theoretically could. I highly doubt that he goes any higher than the second round. And honestly, I have my suspicions that he even goes in the second round. It is a very weak class, though. However,
I think he'll go in the second.
There
as
is
well.
Getting Heidenreich in the draft is not the only opportunity to get Heidenreich.
Correct.
Keep that in mind. You can get him after the draft. Is what we will be doing when if we like the situation enough, we'll overpay for Heidenreich, because overpaying for a guy who's valued at a mid-late second, you're not giving up that much value. It's like, oh, it's a value loss. Yeah, but it's a mid-late second. These are 15th round picks in Dynasty startups. The second round is bad. We have been very, very consistent with this. Sell your second round picks at all costs this year. It's every pick in Dynasty. It's a lot of strategy. But again, I think this is a video where if you watch from the start to finish, you can gain a lot about what your mindset should be as you're going into this very, very busy time in Dynasty. And again, we've got you guys taken care of. We've got our bakery for you guys to reference. We're going to have all kinds of different things during the draft, but we're also going to be able to look at your guys' teams if you'd like to and give you a plan for your rookie drafting. And you can get our rookie draft blueprint, which takes into account all of this data. It gives you a plan for your rookie draft plus a team blueprint, which tells you what type of team you have and what moves you should make at the link below. We'd love to have you come join the community. It's a very fun time in our community right now. And in Dynasty, it's the best time of the year. This is Dynasty Christmas. And so come join for Dynasty Christmas, if not anything, because our community's having an absolute blast over on the Discord, and we're going to continue to have a blast as we go. All right, you guys are the best. We love you. We appreciate you, and we'll see you here soon.